Once upon a time, long ago, before borders were drawn with ink and maps were etched on stone, there was a kingdom called Alaigbo. It was a kingdom rich in every way you can imagine. Its lands were fertile, its warriors were fierce, and its vaults overflowed with gold. But for all its wealth, Alaigbo was cursed with a king that no one loved. His name was King Uche. He was a man of immense power. His voice, a low rumble, could silence a roaring crowd in an instant. His single word could end entire bloodlines, wiping families from memory. His soldiers, hardened men who had faced death without flinching, feared him more than any battlefield. But Uche was ugly, and this ugliness wasn't just on his skin. It seeped into his very spirit. His face was a canvas of scars from strange childhood illnesses. One eye drooped permanently, giving him a sinister, lopsided gaze. His back was slightly bent, like a question mark that had never found its answer. People whispered stories about his appearance. Some said he was born this way, marked by the gods from his first breath. Others, in hushed tones, claimed it was the price of a dark ritual his father performed to seize the throne, a debt paid in his son's flesh. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain. No woman ever stayed long in King Uche's palace. He was a queenless king. Many beautiful maidens were brought before him from the noblest families in the land. Some fainted the moment they saw his face. Others, driven by fear, obeyed his every command but shriveled in his presence. A few even tried to find the man beneath the monster to love him. None succeeded. They either ran mad, their minds broken by the grim atmosphere of the court, or they fell mysteriously ill, or they simply disappeared. One night, never to be spoken of again. The palace was a gilded cage, full of gold and jewels, but completely empty of laughter and warmth. The kingdom's elders grew anxious. A king without an heir is a kingdom waiting for war, a feast for vultures. Into this bleak world came Onome. She was from the distant riverlands, a place of quiet waters and lush greenery. She was captured during a brutal border raid and sold into the unforgiving life of slavery. Her beauty wasn't loud or demanding. It was soft, still, and utterly unavoidable, like the silent pull of the moon on the tide. Her skin seemed to glow with an inner light like a river at dusk. Her eyes, deep and dark, held a rare combination of profound sadness and unyielding courage. When she first arrived at the palace, a new slave girl among many, even the hardened guards paused their duties to stare. Someone whispered, a premonition in their voice, "She looks like trouble." Onome was assigned the task no other slave wanted, cleaning the inner courtyard. It was a lonely, dreaded place because it lay right next to the king's private chambers. One sweltering afternoon as she worked, King Uche passed through. Lost in her sorrow and toil, Onome did not bow fast enough. A guard, eager to display his loyalty, raised his whip to strike her for the disrespect. But before the leather could whistle through the air, the king lifted a single, scarred hand. "Leave her," he commanded. The guard froze. In that moment of suspended violence, Onome looked up and their eyes met. It was a strange connection. Something old and deep stirred between them. It wasn't desire, not the way the king had felt it before. It was something else, recognition. That night, for the first time in years, King Uche could not sleep, but it wasn't lust that kept him awake. It was the memory of her gaze. Onome, the slave girl, had looked at him without the usual mixture of fear or disgust. She had simply looked. The experience was so new, so jarring, that it shook him to his core. He commanded his guards to bring her to him, not to his bed, but simply to his presence. She was brought into the throne room, trembling but with her head held high. She stood before him, a small, defiant figure in the vast, intimidating space. He broke the heavy silence with a question. "Why didn't you look away?" Onome's reply was quiet, but it echoed in the silent hall like a thunderclap. "Because even ugly things are still human, my king." The room went utterly still. The guards, the advisors, everyone held their breath. No one had ever spoken to King Uche with such raw honesty and lived to see the morning. Then the impossible happened. King Uche laughed. It wasn't a cruel, mocking laugh. It was a sad, broken sound, full of a loneliness that no one had ever witnessed. "You are either very brave," he said, his voice softer than anyone had ever heard it, "or very foolish." He then gave an order that stunned the entire court. "She will serve in the palace halls from today." whispers immediately spread like wildfire. A nameless slave girl had caught the ugly king's eye, but no one knew if this was a mark of favor or a death sentence in disguise. That night, the palace drums beat with an uneasy rhythm, their sound carrying a message of change across the silent kingdom. The throne, long feared and lonely, had finally noticed beauty, and for the first time beauty had not run away. But in Alaigbo, a land built on power and secrets, nothing beautiful ever came without a price, and that price was always paid in blood, secrets, or sacrifice. What happens next? Why can King Uche truly not love? What is Onome's hidden past, and what ancient covenant is tied to the very throne he sits upon? Find out in part 2. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming.